CNN English Express special feature, outlining some key issues from recent news and presenting some on-the-street interviews on those topics with people from different countries. First up are the issues of plastic waste and climate change. Plastic waste and climate change. Environmental issues have perhaps never held the world's interest as much as they have this year, and plastic waste has been high on the list. Around 8 to 9 million tons of plastic waste makes its way into the ocean every year, where instead of decomposing, it is broken down into tiny particles by wave action and the sun's ultraviolet radiation. Because marine creatures swallow these microplastics, concern is rising over the human health risks they pose through the seafood we in turn consume. As part of the movement to reduce plastic waste, efforts are underway around the globe to replace plastic straws, cups, and other utensils with ones made of paper or other biodegradable material. Starbucks is aiming to completely abolish the use of plastic disposable straws at all its stores by 2020. And from April the same year, it will be mandatory for all stores in Japan to charge for plastic shopping bags. Another focus of attention this year has been climate change, a problem of increasing gravity as more and more research points to global warming's link to higher frequency of extreme weather events. Central to this issue is the Paris Agreement, a landmark international accord reached in 2015 to combat climate change and work toward achieving a sustainable, low-carbon future. Set forth in the agreement is an international framework of action for 2020 and beyond, with the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions to virtually zero by the latter half of the 21st century. Japan's part includes the interim goal of effecting a 26% reduction from 2013 levels by 2030. Despite President Donald Trump's 2017 announcement that the U.S. would withdraw from the Paris Agreement, a recent poll indicates some 70% of Americans are unhappy with the president's climate change policy. Meanwhile, to better convey the severity of the situation, some media outlets have switched to using the term climate crisis instead of climate change. Thibault from France.
Have you noticed any difference between Japan and France in terms of the use of plastic?
I was discussing with some of my friends here, and because I lived here, I did not notice it as strange, but from people who live in France, it's true that compared to France, there is a lot of waste of plastic in Japan for very small things like napkins or maybe presents. They are already in plastic and then they put another bag of plastic. And this, for example, in France now is almost forbidden to use plastic bags. It should be all replaced by organic bags. So that's a big difference because here, everywhere you find small plastic bags. And it's not even good for your health. Like food wrapped in plastic is not always good for you.
Could you tell me a little about the straws that are replacing plastic straws in France?
So we have 3 different straws. The paper straw, if you put it too long, then it starts to melt. But I find the taste quite good for myself. And then you have bamboo straw, which can be okay with the taste, but kind of expensive. And then you have the metal straw, which is not very expensive, but the taste is very different.
Next, we look at the troubled relationship between the United States and Iran.
Rising tensions. Iran and the U.S. Tensions between the United States and Iran reached a peak in 2019. One key to understanding this and other Middle East issues is Iran's long-standing rivalry with Saudi Arabia. Iran is not an Arabic country. Its long history goes back to the Persian Empire, and Persian is its official language, while Arabic is the official language of Saudi Arabia and most other Middle Eastern Islamic countries. Speaking of religion, Iran is a Shiite Muslim country, whereas Saudi Arabia is a Sunni Muslim country, and regards itself as the leader of the Sunnis, since it includes the sacred cities of Mecca and Medina. Iran was pro-U.S. until 1979, when its Islamic Revolution overthrew the U.S.-backed Shah Pahlavi's monarchy. The U.S. Embassy hostage crisis that same year further soured the U.S.-Iran relationship and led to the severing of their formal diplomatic relations. Iran's nuclear program was first revealed in 2002. Despite UN Security Council economic sanctions imposed on it since 2006, Iran has defiantly continued with its nuclear development. After moderate Hassan Rouhani became president in 2013, Iran softened its stance toward the West. In 2015, Iran, the US, the United Kingdom, France, China, Russia, Germany, and the European Union agreed to the so-called Iran nuclear deal, which led to the removal of the economic sanctions the following year. In 2018, however, the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal and resumed economic sanctions against Iran, which then announced it would restart its unrestricted uranium enrichment. In September 2019, Saudi oil facilities were attacked by militarized drones, heightening tensions further amid U.S. suspicions that Iran was behind the strike. All eyes are now on what President Trump's next move on this front will be ahead of the 2020 U.S. presidential election.
John from the United States.
What do you think about the current relationship between the United States and Iran?
I think the relationship has been strained, and I think that it is dangerous right now because of the instability that President Trump took the United States out of the Iran nuclear deal. And that sort of put us at a disadvantage because the Europeans are still in it. We're out of it. The Iranians now, their economy is in shambles. And we see these acts that are being possibly perpetrated by them and look like they're being perpetrated by them. And it has caused a lot of instability in the Middle East at this time.
Do you trust Iran?
Yes, I do trust them to an extent. The problem is we had a working deal that they were complying with. And as a result of President Trump pulling us out of that deal, that really caused the problem because we look like the ones that can't be trusted. It might not have been a perfect deal. It did have its issues, but Iran was complying. Therefore, I have to trust them on that part. But for a lot of other things, I really don't trust them.
Would you support U.S. military action against Iran if it came to that?
That's a difficult question because I don't want to see another war. We're in the middle of a fight right now. We're in the middle of a fight in Afghanistan and in Syria against the ISIS forces there. I highly doubt that we would get involved in a shooting war, but it is quite possible, and at times it becomes dangerously close to doing so.
Now let's consider the recent escalations in the U.S.-China trade war. Tit for tat, the U.S.-China trade war. Trade conflict between the United States and China is reverberating throughout the global economy. In July 2018, the Trump administration, seeking to correct the U.S. trade deficit. Now let's consider the recent escalations in the U.S.-China trade war. Tit for tat, the U.S.-China trade war. Trade conflict between the United States and China is reverberating throughout the global economy. In July 2018, the Trump administration, seeking to correct the U.S. trade deficit with China, slapped an additional 25% tariff on imports of Chinese steel, aluminum, and other products. China retaliated with tariffs against U.S. products, so the U.S. hit back repeatedly, imposing tariffs on China's semiconductors and other goods in August 2018, and on its electrical appliances, among other things, in September 2018, and again in September 2019. U.S.-China conflict is not limited to trade. In 2018, national security concerns prompted Washington to practically ban American companies from doing business with Chinese telecom giant Huawei without special permission. Huawei has thus been prevented from providing next-generation 5G equipment to the U.S. or its allies. and from using Google's Android OS in its smartphones, forcing it to drastically change its strategy. The US and Japan have so far provided assistance to and maintained diplomatic relations with China in the optimistic belief that it will become a more free, democratic nation the more affluent it grows. China, however, is sticking to its one-party autocracy in the hands of the Communist Party and continues to grow economically under a government-steered economic system. In October 2018, amid a growing sense of crisis in the U.S. about China, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence strongly criticized China in an address delivered at the Hudson Institute in Washington, D.C. This speech is regarded as signaling a major shift in U.S. policy toward the Asian giant. With China expected to rise to the top of the world GDP rankings around 2030, its presence will only grow stronger in the years ahead. Some people see this as nothing less than a process of hegemonic change, the emerging nation of China challenging the U.S. for its spot as the world's most powerful nation. Eileen from the United States.
What do you think about U.S.-China relations amid the current trade war?
So I think it's very complicated because I understand why China is retaliating, and I also understand why the U.S. is fighting against China. So maybe over the last 20 years, China has become very powerful, and a lot of countries owe a lot of money to China, and it's very hard to do business unless you do business with China first. So I understand why the U.S. wants to put sanctions on China because they want to stand up to China because China is bullying a lot of countries right now. But of course, we have so much businesses and so many factories in China that it makes it very difficult for us to have any control over the situation. So of course China will retaliate because they want to protect their own country. So I understand why China is retaliating. But I think the US is in a very difficult position where maybe if they retaliate, it only hurts US businesses and US companies. So I don't know if that's the best move either. I think it's not just economics, but I think socially it's also very difficult to understand how I should feel. Because, if prices of goods increase, that's not necessarily good for me. But of course, if the US continues to fight with China, then I have to deal with these prices. Or if I want to have a business, it's very difficult now. And I think on a cultural, social level, maybe this leads to more Americans hating Chinese people. And, I look Chinese, so I wonder if this causes any, problems with racism or anything like that.
And our final topic is social media's not always positive impacts, particularly on the young.
The pitfalls of social media. Facebook turned 15 in 2019. It is America's most widely used social networking service, SNS, with approximately 70% of the adult population registered. Instagram, a photo-sharing SNS acquired by Facebook in 2012, also continues to gain popularity, especially among youth. But though social media has thus become part of daily life for many people, it does have its downside. Sharenting has aroused particular concern of late. The term refers to the overuse of social media to share information about one's children. As technology advances, it is difficult to foresee what risks might lie in heedlessly sharing photos of or information about your child. Consideration of children's privacy has sparked debate over whether parents even have the right to disclose such information without their children's consent. Then there are social media's negative effects on mental health, to which the young are especially vulnerable. A survey of Brits between the ages of 14 and 24 found that Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter had a detrimental effect on their well-being. Behind social media's vaunted merits, such as enhancing self-expression and community building, lurk considerable drawbacks, including exacerbating anxiety and depression and enabling online bullying, also called cyberbullying. Another big problem for children and youth is fear of missing out, or FOMO. This refers to people, especially youngsters, getting so worried about being left out of their friends' discussions and activities that they develop an obsessive urge to constantly check their social media feeds. With social media having reached maturity, how we use it will no doubt continue to have a significant impact on our personal happiness and well-being.
Andrew from Australia.
There's been controversy this year over whether it's okay to put photos or other information about your children online without their permission. Would you post that kind of content about your child?
I personally would. I mean, if it's my child, I would do it because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I might be a proud father, for example. I want to share my child with everyone, like my family and friends. On the other hand, if maybe I'm a celebrity and everybody, the whole world knows me, that might be a bit, like a privacy issue. So yeah, maybe if I was, really famous, I wouldn't post my children on social media. I personally would. My daughter or son, I would post them just to share with everybody, what we're up to, what we're doing. I think that's also part of the reason for social media is to share your life with other people.
Some people deactivate their social media accounts to free up more quality time for their family or other interests. What do you think about that?
I think in terms of making quality time, you can just stop the habit. Switch off your phone. You don't have to delete the Facebook account or deactivate it. So I think it's just a force of habit that you can fix. But I can see why people deactivate their Facebook account. I personally, I don't deactivate my Facebook account, but I don't use it. My reason is not because of the social interaction, the quality of social interaction of my friends. It's because of privacy issue, I guess. There are people I don't really connect anymore. They're from different part of my life. I don't want really to delete them because I feel bad if I delete them. But at the same time, I don't want them to really know what I'm doing because Facebook tends to tell everyone what you're up to.
See an English Express special feature outlining
social media